This time around, we're putting a brand new LSX engine in my jet boat, and I'm gonna show you two tools that I just bought for less than $100 that are gonna change your life for the better. Welcome back to Finnegan's Garage. This is a huge day because I'm officially moving on from Game Over. I don't mean I'm getting rid of it or anything. I mean, I had a lot of fun with it, and it occurred to me one day, I'd like to share that fun with more than one friend. I'd like to go really fast in a jet boat with 4 people with me, not just one. You know, last summer we took Cletus out, had a good time. We took Tom Bailey out. It was awesome. I feel like stuffing 4 people in one of these and going just as fast, maybe even faster, would be epic. So that's what we're gonna do. We are building a 21-foot long, brand new Eliminator Daytona tunnel boat, and it's gonna be amazing. We're gonna do twin turbos again, but on a smaller LS engine, and yes, we are gonna have seating for 5. Look at this thing. It has a bench seat in the back for 3 people, 2 buckets up front, a pickle fork design that rides really good over rough water. In my opinion, this is the ultimate hot rod family truckster. Bigger boat, it's longer, yes, by about 2 feet than Game Over, but smaller engine. We're gonna use a 427 cubic inch LS engine from Texas Speed, and we're gonna use, finally, after your guys' suggestion, mirror image turbos to make the whole system look symmetrical and, perfect. So we're getting 2 turbos from NRE, and they're 72 millimeters. The engine should make about 1,600 horsepower when it's turned all the way up. And today is the day we start mocking up and mounting things. We don't have all the parts we need. In fact, we stole the jet drive out of Game Over to start mocking up the engine placement in this 21 Daytona. And we have just enough parts, I think, today to lock down that turbo LS motor in here and then start figuring out hot and cold side plumbing. So we're gonna have a lot of fun. Now the first tool I wanna show you is for my Chinese-made engine hoist. This hoist has been in my life for 10 years. In fact, if you're a fan of roadkill, you've seen us haul this all the way to Sparks, Nevada to swap an engine in my wife's Elko in the parking lot. You've seen us haul this to Lake Elsinore in California to swap the engine out of Freiberger's muscle truck into my cousin's Renegade jet boat and back. It's been everywhere. It's really, really portable and does the job. However, it breaks frequently. And what I mean by that is the hydraulic cylinder, about once every 2 or 3 years, just decides, it doesn't matter how much fluid you put in me, I'm gonna leak it all out on the ground overnight and I'm gonna fall down. It's really unreliable. But recently, thanks to Kevin Smith, I discovered that instead of replacing this cylinder for 80 bucks, for 10 bucks more, you can go to Harbor Freight and get another one that also has an air over hydraulic feature. That's right. That's stuck in there, so I'll just do it from here. Instead of just hand cranking your engine up and down and taking forever, now, for about $100, I simply attach this here and we go up. Look at that, it's amazing. And it's lazy. And if you don't want to hear your friends talk, and don't fear the technology, friends, because if the air part doesn't work, or if you transport this somewhere to a place where you don't have compressed air, you can still do it the old-fashioned way. And again, this is at Harbor Freight for like 95 bucks. If you go back to Jegs or Summit Racing, I forget where I bought this, you can get a replacement cylinder that's manual for 80 bucks. So for 10 bucks more, why wouldn't you get the air? You're welcome. I've just made your life that much better. And thank you, Kevin Smith, because you've really made my life that much better. In a lot of ways. Can't even count them all. A lot of ways. Anyway, we're going to use this today to hook up that Texas Speed 427 and dangle it in our 21-foot Eliminator Daytona so that we can start working out engine mounts. Will our new oil pan fit? Can we fit a starter on this engine in this boat? Let's find out. So I had a couple of goals for this 21-foot Eliminator Daytona when I set out to embark on this project. Goal number one was to build a boat my wife actually wanted to drive and ride in. Game Over's awesome, but it only fits 2 people, and it's not the best riding boat on the planet. I mean, it's a straight up drag boat. So the tunnel hull and the length of the 21 Daytona is gonna give her that. It's gonna give her a boat that has room in it for all her stuff and her children and mine, which are the same, actually. Not the Brady Bunch. It's gonna ride better, and it's actually gonna be really fast. I had that boat built as light as we could build it out of a just plain old fiberglass hull. You know, we used as little fiberglass and resin as we could. We used thin wood for the bulkheads and the stringers. That hull, according to Eliminator, weighs about 600 pounds, which is pretty light for a 21-foot long boat. But even though I'm building this for her, I still am doing this for me, and I'd like to drag race that boat. I think that boat has the potential to go really fast and fairly quick. It just needs enough oomph in front of the jet drive to make it happen. So I decided to do an LS motor, and I decided I didn't want to put a junkyard one together because the downside of that is in a car, if it kicks the rods out, you throw it in the gutter, go buy another for 500 bucks from the junkyard, no big deal. Well, in a jet boat, if it kicks the rods out while you're going 140, you go swimming. The boat just nosedives, and the hull usually disintegrates, and you go swimming, and it's never pretty. So safety is huge on this deal. I need about 1,600 horsepower to go as quick as I want to go in this boat, and I'm not comfortable making 1,600 horsepower with a stock LS block, with a junkyard bottom end, none of that. So called up Texas Speed because those guys are known for putting together stout packages, and I said, give me something, or rather sell me something, I bought it, that I could make 2,000 horsepower with, and that will live, so that if I turn it down to 1,600 and just regularly beat the snot out of it there, it should be just fine. So this is the result. This is 427 cubic inches. It is based on a GM LSX block. It has a Sonny Bryant billet crank, but it has Callie's I-beam connecting rods. It has Wiseco pistons, PRC heads that have the hip treatment. Why not billet? Well, there's a way to make cast aluminum heads almost as strong as billet, and for a fraction of the cost. It's called the HIP process. And off the top of my head, I can't tell you what HIP stands for, but the long and short of it is when you cast aluminum, there's air bubbles in it, right? And obviously you don't know how many air bubbles are in it, but the aerospace industry decided they needed a way to get the air bubbles out. So what they do is they take the cast aluminum parts, they put them in an oven, heat them to about 900 degrees, then fill the oven with pure argon under pressure, like a lot of pressure, between 12 to 15,000 PSI. So between the heat, which makes the aluminum pliable, and the pressure of the argon, you can force all the air out of an aluminum casting, making it way stronger than it ever would be otherwise. So these heads have the HIP treatment, which is an option. The block is cast iron, which is inherently strong. It has a great camshaft. The heads have chambers that have been softened for boost. Everything about this is built for a ton of boost, which we're going to give it because we're going to put twin 72mm Nelson Racing Engine mirror image turbos on this. The 72s are kind of borderline sized for making 1,600 horsepower. We might have some back pressure there with that, but they'll spool really quickly, which is what I want. And in truth, we're going to drag race this, so we're not going to be spending a lot of time at wide open throttle. But the 72s will pretty much be maxed out to make 1,600. And for those that are wondering, I'll give you all the specs on this motor in the description of the YouTube video. I've got them all here on paper, and it's a lot to memorize and just spit out here, but I'll tell you everything. And the last thing I want to talk about is the intake manifold. This is the Texas Speed Titan intake. It has their optional intercooler right here. We're actually not going to be running this. This has one set of injectors. I want 2 sets, not because we need the ability to flow more fuel to support the power we want. This setup is good to 2,000 horsepower, but I want to run 2 separate fuel systems in this boat. And the reason is I want to have pump gas for driving long distances, and then a separate tank and a separate pump feeding separate injectors and fuel rails so that as soon as the engine sees boost, we pump race fuel in there so it doesn't detonate. So I need an intake with 2 sets of injectors, two fuel rails completely separate from each other to do that, and it's not here yet. So This will stay on until we swap. I'm confident this isn't gonna blow up on us when my wife's driving it or I'm driving it really fast. And at the end of this deal, we're gonna have a 5-seater jet boat that's probably as fast as Game Over, which is pretty rad. So let's see if it fits. I bought an oil pan off the internet. We haven't put it on yet. We don't know if it fits the block. We don't know if the engine will fit in the boat with the oil pan, but today we're gonna find out. So right about now, you guys probably have 2 questions on your brains. And question number 1 is, where's that other tool for less than $100 that I talked about in the beginning of the video? And it's right here. This tool is air powered. It's very tiny. In fact, it's shorter than a $100 bill. And this has what looks like a router bit on the end of it, and you use this to deburr and bevel the edge of parts you've made. Let's say you're highfalutin and you have a CNC plasma cutter and you've put a window and some thick steel. You just drop this in here, run it around, and it will bevel the edge as if you had a CNC machine cutting the parts out, which is pretty sweet. Let's say you had some tubing and you're getting ready to butt 2 pieces of tubing together to build a header. Just put that in there. Newbern's gonna demonstrate this. This sells for between $60 and $90 on Amazon. It looks like from the photos, there's about 10 different suppliers selling the exact same tool. So my advice would be to buy the cheapest one. That's what I did. And so we're gonna use this today to clean up some of the pieces of the oil pan that we bought here. If you're a fan of the channel, then you know we struggled mightily to get a pan on the LS3 that's in the Renegade jet boat. I think we went through 2 different pans, maybe 3 before we got one that worked and that sealed and that held oil pressure. So we're trying a 4th one here for our Eliminator jet boat. This is by KOPO. It is a steel pan. It is a full-length sump pan that holds about 8 quarts of motor oil and has the fittings built into the flange here for remote mounting the oil filter. It is made of steel. It looks pretty damn nice. In fact, when I stare across it, I see minimal warpage to the pan rail. We're gonna put it flat on the old table here and make sure it's perfect before we install it. I think this is gonna work. As always, when you get a new oil pan or any new internal engine compartment, take it apart and clean it. Deburr the edges, whatever you can do to make sure no metal goes into your fresh motor. In that last video we put up, we talked about how I was thinking about selling Game Over because the family doesn't fit in it. And you know, it's crazy enough that someday I could probably get hurt driving it. And you're wondering, why aren't we just taking the motor out of Game Over to put in this Eliminator Daytona? And the truth is I was going to. That was the plan from the beginning when I ordered this hull. However, when we started measuring everything, Game Over's engine just flat out doesn't fit in here, like at all. The headers we built, the turbo system, the exhaust, nothing fits. The sides of this boat are much taller. So if you were to put Game Over's engine in this Daytona and line it up with the jet drive, none of the parts that we've built for it, the intercooler plumbing, the exhaust system, the turbos, the tips, none of that would clear the fiberglass hull of this boat. That's a lot of hours of stuff to rebuild and whatnot. So in the end, we decided, let's put a smaller engine in this boat, physically smaller, not just cubic inches, that fits better and that has room for the kids and the wife to walk past to get on and off the back of the boat when you're out in the middle of the water. So that's how we ended up putting an LS in there and not Game Over's 711 cubic inch Hemi. Anyway, we're gonna install this on our 427. Before we do that, Newbern's gonna disassemble it, deburr it, and show you that cool new tool.
All right, check it out. Here's our little beveling tool. The thing's pretty small. It fits in the palm of your hand rather comfortably, and it costs 88 bucks on Amazon. It's got little carbide bits right here, and you can get the refills off of Amazon as well. And one thing I did notice is the fitting that it came with is a straight cut O-ring fitting. So your typical 1/4 inch NPT fitting for your air hoses will not screw into here. But I also figured out that this is what they call a high flow automotive fitting. And when I went to Home Depot, which is where I got this guy, the one on display, this plugged right into and snapped right on. But the one I bought out of the pack that it was supposed to be, you know, the match to that one did not work. And what I figured out was the hex part of this wouldn't countersink into here far enough so these little ball bearings in here would lock this guy in. So all I done was take a unibit, I just drilled this out just a little bit, just so this can countersink into there and lock into position there. All right, so we have an extra flexible hose laying around the shop. I'm gonna adapt our one and only high flow fitting from Home Depot to this guy. And this will pretty much live together because it's gonna be the only hose in the shop that will fit this. So I'm gonna tighten this up here. We're gonna hook it up, see if it has any leaks, and then we're gonna give it a shot and see how it works. I did go ahead and put some oil in this because it is brand new. I'm gonna wait and put this on last. See if our fitting leaks. Okay, this end doesn't leak, that end does. All right, doesn't leak. Whoa, this thing is really fast. And the thing also has a speed adjustment on it. You can slow it down and speed it up. It's a little window here to let the air escape, and you can also adjust it and point it at different directions. And the thing also has a height adjustment. So if you want to lower this down and put a very small bevel on what you're working on, you can do that and then lock this down. And it has a gauge right there. That's pretty cool. All right, let's slow it down and see what happens. Sounds like a damn rocket. Full blast. Wow. All right, I gotta try this out. All right, so I'm gonna take my tool. I'm gonna lower this a little bit. I don't wanna get too crazy with it, so I'm just gonna put just a small bevel on it. I'm gonna lock this down right there. We'll try it and see what happens. This is a piece of 3/16 scrap metal, which is laying in the bin over there, and it's got some nice straight edges. Give me a good, you know, example of what this thing's gonna do. All right, let's turn it all the way down. Whoa. One pass, 2 seconds there. One pass and it looks like that. That's awesome. All right, let's do some more. That looks like a CNC machine done that. It looks like a precision cut there, not just a straight cut. That is awesome. All right, so you can go forward or back. It doesn't care. It does the same thing. And man, even when it gets to these corners, that looks awesome. That looks really good to me. I think that's, you know, plenty for anything you're trying to do, but I'm just curious as to what happens when this thing is completely bottomed out. That's so easy to do. Just drag the little bearing across the edge of it. Puts a nice straight bevel on there. So I think I'm gonna take this back down. We're gonna lower this back down because that's pretty aggressive right there. Although it looks cool, it's just a little much. All right, I like it. Let's run with it. It's got nice little baffles in here with hinged windows where the oil pump pickup tube sits. And it's got another baffle up here with windows in it. I mean, this thing is nice. All right, so you can see right here, it's got a few high and low spots. I'm gonna knock those down before I even try and bevel it, because all it's gonna do is just jump over that and then it won't be, you know, straight. So we're gonna try and flatten some of these out with a file and then use our new tool. Got our piece all nice and beveled and all the burrs are gone. It's much cleaner. We can clean this up and put it back on the oil pan and test fit this on the engine. So, and I do wear eye protection because that thing does throw some metal, like hardcore. So what I want to do is I want to test. So this down in here, obviously, you know, it doesn't sit flush, it rolls. Like this portion of it doesn't fit in here very well. And that might be normal, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not.
So you're relying on the O-ring to
right.
seal it. Okay.
So when you put this in there, push it down. Like when you put the bolt in there, it'll pull down obviously the one side with the bolt.
Right, because it's just one bolt holding it
right.
on.
But then once you do this,
then it cocks it that way.
It cocks it that way, and the O-ring's half out over here.
Yeah, that's not gonna work.
It makes me nervous, like I said, and that might be normal. People might run it like this all day long, but
I don't know. I thought we had 2 bolts holding the one on your motor.
So the original pan did. Like the pan that was on there in my pickup had 2 bolts and a gasket.
Yeah, a paper gasket and 2 bolts. We switched it to an O-ring, but still 2 bolts, right?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
But did it fit differently than this?
I don't remember. Like I don't
so
remember.
Does this have a provision? Yeah, this is a provision for 2 bolts.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they have a little thing that you can add a little ear. It looks like a distributor hold down.
Yeah, I said we can just make one real quick. Just have a bolt in there and pull that thing down flat. And
well, that's the problem too. This won't go flat. Like that, the little lip on this won't allow that to actually go flat either.
So the question is, does it seal? Okay.
Right.
Well, unlike the last time we did this, let's try to get somebody on the phone and see what they say.
Yeah.
Because maybe that works. I mean, I'd hate to find out the wrong way and
No.
turbo the motor, assemble the whole thing, put it in the boat, put it in the water, find out you got no oil pressure. Now you've got to unturbo the motor, then pull the motor out of the boat. Like, it's a pain in the butt once it's all together.
Is there a way that we can somehow spin this over like you would a drill and a rod for a standard small block or big block Chevrolet? Can we build up oil pressure in this thing to make sure all that's good before we even...
I think we could. It would just be nice to find it out ahead of time. Okay, so we know there's a potential issue there. Let's pop the gasket and the pan on and see if that clears the crank. Like for a steel oil pan, it's pretty darn clean. All right, we are not quite lined up. All right, almost. It needs to go.
I think it's the gasket, but yeah, it's really close.
Pretty close. Okay. That seems like that sits down.
What we can do
is the windage tray in there and everything?
Uh-huh, it's all in there.
Okay.
What we can do is we can put a couple bolts in it and rotate the motor over. Make sure nothing comes in contact.
Okay. So let's call KOPO and talk to them about the oil pump pickup.
Okay.
And then we'll just tell them we have a Melling oil pump. Here's what we got going on and see what they say. Okay. God, I love jet boats. You can just sit in the back of them while you work on the drivetrain. They're amazing. Here's what's happening today. The goal is get the engine in the boat mounted. Now, in order to do that, we're going to be substituting some parts we don't have on hand. That is a Dominator jet drive that we got from American Turbine, and that came out of Game Over. We just stole it from Mockup. And Game Over runs a long drive shaft because the engine is mounted further forward in the boat than this engine will be. And it's directly coupled to the jet drive. There's no transmission, there's no clutch, there's nothing in there. This boat is also going to be direct drive. However, we're going to have this unit between the jet drive and the engine. This is called a jetaway. This is a ratcheting mechanism. And job number one for this unit is if you're going really fast in a jet boat and your motor locks up, so the crank stops spinning, that means the jet drive stops spinning. And you have all that water coming into the intake of the jet drive that has nowhere to go if the jet drive's spinning. And what happens is that water comes into the jet drive, forces the back of the boat up into the air, slams the nose of the boat down, it steers left and right at a high speed and throws you right out and you get hurt. So this is essentially a safety mechanism that does work pretty good to a certain degree. The other thing this does is you can slide this coupler forward and back and disconnect the engine from the jet drive so that you can run the engine out of the water, the jet drive out of the water. You know, you can do maintenance, tuning, whatever you want to do without having the jet drive spin, which is cool. This particular one was recently rebuilt by Marine Performance Design in Costa Mesa, California. The tolerances are very tight. It's a racing jet pump. And so, although it's not going to get destroyed if I fire the motor up and let the jet drive spin with no water going through it, it's not great for it. And I don't know if you've ever seen this, but if you tow a jet boat down the highway for several hundred miles, you end up with gravel, asphalt, sand. Everything that's on the highway ends up in the jet drive. And so as a rule, I usually, after a long tow, dump the boat on the trailer in and out of the water a couple times to try to flush the jet drive out before I start it. But more importantly, like if you tow it someplace really far and then you go dry fire this thing with no water in it, you know, it's going to wear out a little bit. So a jetaway gives you the ability to disconnect the jet drive from the engine and fire it whenever you want without necessarily wearing it out or damaging it. So today what we're going to do is, that's not our actual jet drive for this boat. We borrowed it, but we're going to bolt this jetaway onto it. Then we're going to bolt the world's shortest drive shaft to the back of our LS engine, slide the yoke down onto the jetaway, which gets us our dimension, how far forward the engine needs to be mounted in the boat. Then we're going to install what's called a rail kit and a set of motor plates in here, and we're going to lock the motor down in the boat today, which is going to be amazing. And I'm guessing in about another week, we're going to get our actual jet drive for this boat from a shop called Big League Racing in Southern California. They're building us a brand new American turbine pump with all the good stuff, fully blueprinted. It's going to be amazing. And like I said, we're going to use Game Over's jet drive for now to mock this thing up and get it going so that, you know, we can keep moving along on the project, because it's February and summer will be here before you know it. And my goal is to take a lot of people on a lot of rides in this thing. So let's get going. So when it comes time to actually install this, we have to measure the amount of gasket crush we get, and then add and subtract one of these to make sure it's right.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a clearance here, and if the gap is too big, the gasket doesn't crush and then it leaks because this has oil in it. And if it's too tight, it pushes on the bearing and destroys the jet drive.
Oh, geez. All right.
There's a set of dogs and clutch for this, but we're going to leave it out right now. And a real important thing about this is never grab the handle and move it until the thing's totally installed. Because if you do, and the thing's not set up correctly, it won't work, and then you have to send it back to the company. Don't slide that.
I'm glad you said something. Because like,
it's tempting.
Me over there, I was like, ooh, I kind of wanted to slide it, but I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah, don't do that. We won't slide it. We won't put any oil in it, because this is going on the other jet drive.
Okay, so basically, if I pull the one off of the Renegade, for any reason, if I was to pull that one off, I don't need to move it while it's off the boat, or is it?
No, if the unit's disconnected from the jet drive, you don't want to slide this.
Okay.
You want to leave it engaged.
Okay.
And I'll put a link into the video description for all the parts we're going to use. And no, these guys didn't sponsor us. It's just a good product, and I believe in it. Okay, let's try.
All right, explain to me why you're comfortable putting this on this boat, but not Game Over.
I didn't put it on Game Over because, as complicated as Game Over already is in terms of the number of systems and wires and things that are on it, I didn't want to add one more thing. And the truth is, I have broken the clutches in these before. They're not infallible. They can break, and I thought, it's just one more thing to go wrong, and Game Over makes stupid power, and so I just never put one in. And so with Game Over, when we want to run the motor, in the driveway, not in the water, we unbolt the drive shaft every time.
Yeah.
And it's a pain in the butt. This one, the truth is, I'm kind of building this boat for my wife, and I want it easy to use. Game Over is easy to lean over the back of it. You're standing on a ladder right now to lean over the back of this thing. Yeah. So unbolting the drive shaft out of this with the turbos and everything here is going to be a pain in the butt. Yeah. But you can lean over the top of this, just grab those handles and slide this out of here.
Right. I love that about the Renegade.
Yeah.
When I randomly fire it up.
Yeah. So this, you notice it's spinning right now, and that's because I don't have the other half of the clutch in there right now. So this will slide on here.
Does this move in and out at all?
No.
So that's just a stop for that.
Yeah, so basically what you're going to do is slide that all the way up against it and then pull it back about half an inch. Because it's a fiberglass boat hole, it does flex. Mm-hmm. And if you were to bottom it out on the ring and the back of the boat flexes and this comes forward, it pushes on the drive shaft, which is bolted to the crank, pushes on the crank, and wipes out the thrust bearing of the crank. So we need some gap there. So it's yoke, H-bar, other half of the H-bar, PTO adapter, bolts right to the back of the crank. And this boat has a low profile jet drive intake, so the motor sits really low in the boat, which is why we're having all those problems fitting a starter and oil pan. All right, so now this can go on the back of our LS.
Sweet.
And then we can put the motor plates on the LS, swing it in here, temporarily clamp our rail kit in place, get everything leveled out and straight, and then drill some holes.
Start drilling holes in it.
Yeah, drill the first holes. Well, not the first holes, but the first of many holes to go in this boat. This makes me very happy. So in the past, I've made comments on episodes of Roadkill and probably here on Finnegan's Garage that there's no kits to build you a jet boat. Whether you're building a brand new boat hull or you're re-rigging an old one, you kind of have to make parts for these things. Well, thanks to CNC machines and the trickle-down effect of racing, where those machines have become cheaper and cheaper and cheaper to the point where hobbyists have them. You know, I know people with 3D printers now. They're out there everywhere, and the jet boat world is finally embracing it to the point where you can now buy a CNC cut rail kit for your old boat or your new boat that, with a little thought on your part and a little massaging, basically allows you to bolt stuff in like an LS engine. This kit here is a rail kit to fit a brand new LS engine in a brand new boat or an old one, you know, whatever you want to do with it. And it came from Big League Racing in Southern California. The guys there knocked it out of the park because although this looks, you know, like a motor plate, this kind of looks like a mid plate for a race car. Although it looks pretty simple, when you turn it over, the part you're gonna see, the windows, CNC'd, and they're gorgeous. Look at these. These are the front motor plates for this thing. Look at the windows and scallops that they put in these things. They're amazing. And they even go through there and add you AN threads for the inlets and water outlets right there, in and out. You know, typically, like a rail kit for a jet boat's no big deal. Motor plates, those have been around for 40 years now. But, you know, they were made on like a vertical bandsaw, like what's behind me. You know, they were cool. You could mill some slots and some windows in them, but they didn't look as cool as these look because these are CNC machined, and this would have normally had like a tapered pipe tap thread in it that, you know, you'd thread your AN fitting into. This one is actually an AN thread, so you can use an O-ring fitting it, which is pretty trick. And so anyway, those guys made front plates. They made a rear plate, which in a drag car would be called a mid plate. And then these rails will bolt to the stringers of the boat, and then the motor plates will sit on top of them just like that, and then they'll get locked down with these pillow blocks right here, so it'll sit just like that. And this entire thing will bolt into my boat even though there's no holes, and we're going to show you how we figure out where it needs to go right now. It's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. So, minor little hiccup here. Not every LS engine is created equal. This is an LSX block, so it's different than a factory block. A couple of speed bumps with our front motor plates here. This core plug sits off the face of the block, so our motor plate is sitting on top of that. So we're gonna take this off, machine some thickness here, and then see if there's enough material there to put it back in tight. If not, we'll machine some thickness off of this and machine a little bit of the plate on the back, and then it'll go on. Not the end of the world. We're also going to grind a little bit of our timing cover because we have a Texas Speed timing cover, which has 2 bolt hole bosses here and here that you don't find on a stock timing cover. And so they're interfering with the plate just a little bit right there. Not a big deal. This is a little sketchy because the motor's dangling in the air, and I don't want it to fall. Oh.
Yeah, now, yeah.
Did you try the impact?
No.
All right, let's try this again. Ready? Oh, there we go.
Oh,
we're good.
All right.
We're good.
All right. Whew. So yeah, you'll notice when I painted this, you'll see in the video, I taped every single one of these individually because I tried one, couldn't get it out, afraid I was gonna tear it up, so I just left it alone.
Did you use the giant bar?
No.
That's the key. That's the key. So these O-ringed or taped? They're Teflon. Okay.
Hold on. Is there no gasket on that?
No, it's just Teflon pasted.
So that's weird. So it's not a pipe thread.
No, it's probably some, like, LSs are weird. The cranks are drilled with a thread for bolts that is like a Chevy-specific M11 bolt. It's the weirdest thing ever. They're hard to find. Wouldn't be surprised if these were weird. Oh, this says 8.8. No, 6.6? What does that say right there?
It says 8.8 Ford rear axle.
If only we had a Ford rear axle right now. It'd be nice to find one of these that just was countersunk, like
Pull the other one out and look at it.
this one.
That will answer our question.
Ah, damn. So I took this one all the way out, and it's exactly the same. Now we got to put pipe thread on it and put it back in there.
There we go. It doesn't look bad either. Just nice straight cut down it. Set up a little indentation. We'll pull that back off, clean it, Sharpie that.
Might need to open up these holes just a hair.
Stay tight. Uh-oh, hold on. That's hitting. That's rubbing the timing cover.
So it is. So maybe the bolts are right, but the timing cover needs
That's it.
a little love right there. Hold up, wait a minute. I need to say thank you guys. I want to thank every one of you for supporting this channel. And more importantly, I want to thank you guys for helping us make really, really bad financial decisions with our lives. Every time you buy a shirt or a hoodie or a hat or a sticker, that money goes right back into the projects here at Finnegan's Garage. And thank you, I appreciate it. And if you want anything, fsmgarage.com is where you can find it. On with the show. One of the great things about working on a jet boat is you can pretty much sit inside of it while installing the complete drivetrain. This is a 21-foot Eliminator Daytona. We've talked about that before. It is a fiberglass bolt hull with some aircraft balsa wood inlays and stringers made of wood. The stringers, think of those, if you're not a boat guy, the stringers are basically the frame rails of a car. Everything will mount off of these. The engine, the jet drive, the seats, the steering, all of this in some way, shape, or form gets attached to the stringers. Now, you can mount a motor in one of these boats pretty easily using kind of a standard engine mount, looks like a foot, or you can do it the racing way, which is to use a rail kit. Now, these are called motor rails. This is nothing more than 6061 aluminum, 1/4 inch thick, 2x2, and it has been heavily machined by Big League Racing using a CNC, which makes it a lot lighter. Started out as this. You can buy this at a lot of different places, and you can even install this in your boat. And a lot of guys will actually run these the length of the boat from front to back. This will bolt through the stringer of the boat right next to it, and everything can sit on top of this. Your fuel pump, your engine, you know, your electronics, your seats, everything can mount off of these. What we're gonna do here is we're not gonna run these the length of the boat because we don't need all of it. In an effort to save weight, we're gonna use short motor rails, just long enough for the front and rear engine plate to sit on top of. And then, oh yeah, they've been extensively lightened and they look really cool. And the way we're gonna install this is we are going to clamp these to the stringers of the boat. We're gonna mount them level to the stringers of the boat. And then we're gonna adjust our motor plates so that the engine can sit at the right angle so that our drive shaft connects to our jet drive.
So Game Over, it has the full length rail like from front to back, just like that without machining, right?
Game over because I didn't know what we were doing as far as where everything was gonna go in the boat. I ran a full rail from the transom all the way up to the front seats and then mounted everything off that. And then I could have gone back and cut out the sections we didn't need, or at the very least, I could have gone back, taken the rails out and milled slots into them, kind of like this, although it wouldn't have been nearly as nice because I have a manual Bridgeport mill. I don't have a CNC type machine. And we could have lightened them a lot. I just never did it because I never had time. This boat, we are gonna lighten as much as we can because it's a bigger boat, but I still want it to accelerate really hard. And in a jet boat, weight is everything. The more weight you can take out of the boat, the faster and the quicker the boat will be. You know, it's a lot like a car, except the weight penalty in a boat seems to be a little higher. You know, for every 100 pounds you stick in a jet boat going down a track, the penalty in ET seems to be higher than it is in a car. So getting the weight out of these boats will improve the whole shot dramatically. And in a boat as big as this one, we want to make this thing as light as we can while still being strong. So step number one, clamp these to the stringers of the boat and then drop the motor in one more time to make sure we have the height of our engine where we want it. Now our goal here is to get the oil pan and the engine as low in the boat as we can so the drive shaft has a pretty good angle between the jet drive and the engine. The jet drive has a low profile intake, so that jet drive is sitting really low in the boat, and so we need to get the motor as low as we can. So we're gonna mock this up right now with some clamps, swing the motor in, set the motor plates down on the rail kit, verify our angles are good, and then we'll take the motor back out, clamp these even better, drill the boat. Yeah, big moment, putting holes in the boat. And one more thing, obviously you don't have to spend the money to get a CNC'd set of motor rails. In fact, you don't have to buy motor rails from anyone. You can buy the raw material from a metal supplier. You can get these at McMasterCar.com or any other local retailer of metal. What you want to be careful about is when you're buying angle, there are two designs. If you look down this one, you'll see that that inside edge is rounded because this is very, very strong structural style aluminum angle. This one is not. See the sharp corner on it? Wildly different. Same alloy, but the shape of the aluminum is very different. This one, stronger than this one. So this is what you want to use to take the load of the engine and all that torque. This, you can build a lot of things with this, just don't mount your engine with it, okay? All right, so we're gonna assume the stringers in this boat are installed parallel to the bottom, or pretty close to it. So we're gonna zero our angle finder here. And then we're going to clamp our motor rails at the same angle as the stringers. All right, so measure the length of that.
34.
All right, and then measure the outside to outside measurement of the motor plates on the engine block.
21 1/8.
All right, so 34 minus 21 1/8, divide that in 2, and that's the distance from the end of the plate on each end. So we'll mark this, and then we'll know that's where this motor plate's gonna land, that's where that motor plate's gonna land. And then what we'll do is move the rail around until we have it centered so that the windows all look cool between the motor plates. Okay, it's running downhill about 1/2 degree, which is actually okay because the jet drive's running uphill. Time to drill holes. We used these things called transfer punches to mark the stringers. Basically, these are precision ground pieces of bar stock that have a point at the very end. And they will mark or punch the center of the hole for you. And we're going to use 5/16 bolts to go through there. So we'll go up one size in the drill index. And we will be good. Clamp soft, drill the last 4 holes, and blow it all apart, pull the tape off.
Hopefully our little side pieces go on. I mean, I think I drilled them. I drilled them all the same, so if they're crooked, they're all crooked.
Oh, well, that's the spirit. Consistency is what we want, even if it's wrong.
That's right.
Remember, this is wifey's boat, so if you screw it up, it's her you got to deal with, not so much me.
She shouldn't park her car in the garage. This is payback.
Time to put in the rails semi-permanently. Eventually, these will come back out because we'll powder coat everything. But for now, we needed everything in there so we can start mocking up the rest of the boat. So these are the backing plates for the outside of the stringers. These are here because when you tighten these bolts down really, really tight, it's going to try to suck in to the wood and the fiberglass. And you could use a washer, but this is just a little more attractive and a little better than a washer. And although it does add weight, it's aluminum, so it's not a lot of weight. All right.
It's really pretty aluminum. What color are you going to powder coat these? Because, dude, these are just...
I want to do...
God, these are gorgeous.
Black, but mask off the machining in the middle.
All right, I'm good with that. That's going to look good, too.
I pity the powder coater that has to do that. The right way to do that is to powder coat everything and then go and machine it, but we didn't do that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They might end up just all black, but if we can keep the shiny machine marks, that would be sick.
All right, let's see if these bolts go through there.
Yeah, I think they will. You got the tools. You know, I'll hold the rail up and I'll... Don't go too far.
I'm not. Barely out. Put this guy on here.
Hand me that. I'll get the other ones going.
3 for 3.
Nice.
Oh my goodness. Sweet.
All right, let me give you a washer. And there you go. Here's 5 washers. I'll give you some nylock nuts. We're there. So the next big thing is fitting the motor plates to the boat. We have the rail kit in. The motor plates, although beautiful and cut on a CNC, they're fairly universal. And the problem with that is boats are not made on frame tables. They're built by humans. They're made in fiberglass molds. The stringers are, put in there by men and women using their hands, and fiberglass resin and stuff moves around. And so the end result of all of that is that the boat is not perfectly square. So when we put the motor in there, the motor, if you put the same gap between the ends of these plates and the stringers of the boat, the motors in there are actually crooked. So we have to trim these, just one corner on each side, so that the motor sits in the boat straight and parallel with the jet drive, which is really what's important. And visually, if you look at the boat overall, the motor would be in there crooked if we made these parallel to the stringers. And whose fault is that? Nobody's. This is just what happens when you build boats. There is no boat on this planet made out of fiberglass by humans that is perfectly straight. It just doesn't exist. So even when you buy CNC motor plates, oftentimes they require just a little bit of trimming to get everything to line up perfectly the way you want it and so that it looks right. So what are we gonna do? We are gonna cut 3/8 of an inch off the end of the right front motor plate right here. And then we're gonna go to the left rear side of the motor plate and cut 1/4 inch off of it so the engine can twist this way, giving us a straight drive shaft, and visually the motor will look straight in the boat. And then we'll dress it up as best we can so that it still looks the way it came from Big League Racing. And it won't be perfect, but nothing is. It'll be fine. We'll cover it with powder coat anyway. So we'll get this off and this off, trim them in the bandsaw, sand it a little bit, bolt this back on, motor goes in the boat, and then it'll be perfect because then we can move on.
Where'd you get these? I need to get a set for my house.
I think I got these from the art store, but you can get them on Amazon. They're just called circle templates.
Working here is, really opened my eyes to like all the different kinds of tools that's out there that I never knew about. Like these I use all the time, and then that little center punch that you look through that has the...
Is that thing great?
Dude, I love it.
Yeah, that center punch is awesome.
Slowly my shop is becoming your shop because I'm buying all the same tools.
Beautiful. Trim that, sand that, bolt that back on. Do the same to the motor plate, and then the engine can go in the boat.
Let's throw a tape measure on the crank. Next.
Okay.
Put it on the valley cover. That looks like the same, but it may not be.
1.4 down. That's 1 degree down. That's 6 degrees. So there's about a 5-degree difference, but we can cut the motor plate in the back to drop the back down. I think we have enough room under the oil pan to do it.
Yeah, you got a solid 1/2 inch.
So
I bet it would take that. I bet it would take probably an 1/8 inch, and it would.
yeah, we could probably just take a little more out of it. If we get this at 2 degrees and this is at 6, I'll
Oh yeah, well that ain't nothing. If you straighten this to where it sits on this flat, it'll probably drop another degree because it's sitting. Yeah, it's sitting funny.
Front's doing it too. But in the meantime, let's pull the tape, put the intake on.
Okay.
Because this is the part. This is it right here, man.
Hey, you want to put a straight edge across the stringers, zero that, then put it on there to see what it.
Sure.
Just for. It
says it's pretty level. Perfect.
Is it? I love it.
Perfect. All right, I'll pull the tape. You grab the intake.
All right.
Let's show the people.
What we're about to put on is probably the best looking machined part for an engine I've ever seen.
I agree. I've seen a lot of cool CNC looking stuff, but not like this.
Not to mention, it's named after my favorite UFC dude from back in the day, Chuck Liddell. He was the Iceman.
Oh, the Iceman. You liked Liddell. He was cool. I liked him too. He always seemed like he was a badass, but I don't know why I always thought of him as the underdog too, because he was shorter.
Yeah.
Than some of the other.
And he wasn't like very big. Like he was, compared to the other guys, he was kind of skinny, but like, yeah, I never liked Tito, but yeah, like I always liked Chuck.
I was
Liddell.
a Liddell fan, yeah, not a Tito fan.
No.
I like Tank Abbott. Remember him?
Yeah, but
early.
The early years, because like every time I ever seen him, he always got beat up.
Yeah, but he was like, he just didn't look like he should have been there, in the first place.
I know.
Like Kimbo Slice. Didn't look like he should have been there.
He beat the hell out of Tank Abbott.
Yeah.
Man, he beat him up good. Dan Fry. Remember him?
No.
Oh my dude. Remember like the giant, I think it was a Japanese dude. I mean, he just towered over him in like a ring. It was like in a different country.
Oh yeah.
They went at it, just punching each other.
Yeah.
He beat the hell out of that guy.
Yeah.
He was a little dude. Mustache, he was like Dan Severin's training buddy.
Yeah.
Dude. Icon. Ready?
Yeah, bring it out.
Okay.
Bring it out. So, I wanted a tunnel ram because the LS is a tiny motor and tunnel rams and hot boats go together. But I also wanted a tunnel ram that had 2 sets of injectors so we could run 2 fuel systems. And this is what I came up with.
Please don't drop it.
All right, you're gonna want to come in here.
Oh God.
Because I don't want to be responsible. This is by Frankenstein Engine Dynamics. It's called the Iceman. It's a tunnel ram for a cathedral port LS. You can also get it for a rectangular port LS. And it has
going backwards?
Yeah, it has 2 sets of rails. And we want 2 sets of rails and 2 sets of injectors so that we can run a large fuel tank over here with pump gas for going long distances, and then a small fuel cell with race fuel for going really fast. And wow.
Dude.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
And so this has provisions for 1 set of injectors here on this side of the runner, and then another set on the inside down the valley. And it has an intercooler that sandwiches in here, and it looks incredible. I need to get out of the boat and see it.
Dude.
And the reason I want to run it backwards, or at least we're thinking about doing that, is I'm thinking about putting the turbos here, keeping everything nice and tucked. And I'm pretty sure, it's a cathedral port LS. LSs are symmetrical. You can flip the intake around the other way, but I also think we can flip the burst panel side of the tunnel ram there too. So we just flip the top on here, turn the whole thing around that way, and I think we can keep the burst panel away from the passenger compartment, the back seat.
Is the burst panel really necessary for turbos? Because you have a...
Yeah, you remember what happened to Game Over? Split the intake.
Oh, okay. All right.
The burst panel is necessary for anything you miss the tune-up on.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
You backfire through the intake, you want a burst panel. Wow. This will be tight. Like, I think Motion Raceworks probably has what we need, which is a throttle body and a Y setup that might clear this.
It's short too. It's like this. So, I mean, we should be able to, make some swoops there, and dude, that is a work of art, dude.
We should put the turbo headers on.
Okay.
And figure out a way to make a fixture to hang the turbos up here real quick, and then, dude. Oh, let's do this. Let's slide the seat back where we think it's going to go, and
see how much room you got.
Yeah, put those things, and damn, this is beautiful. This is absolutely beautiful.
Like that Joker is expensive, but good Lord, the machine, like this. Oh my God, this is top notch.
The tool paths are the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Just look, the bungs for where the water fittings for the intercooler, they look like they were welded on and ground smooth, and they're not. That's a chunk of billet that got machined. And I'm thinking these need to go right about here, right? And then out of the turbo into a Y, into one of those Motion Raceworks Icon throttle bodies, the really small ones. And yeah, you'll see that next time on Finnegan's Garage when we work on this. Thanks for watching. And more importantly, thank you for all the support. Thank you for going to fsmgarage.com to buy shirts and hats and stickers so that we can buy these parts and so that you're not naked when you go outside the house. Appreciate that.